and she's gotta own. She'll know that it's right when the ache goes away. Down in her bones, a woman has got her own way. I heard somebody whisper, won't you please adore me? And when I looked, the moon had turned to gold.
Hey, show us the way out. Welcome to our show, HALIE LOREN.
Yay.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here with you.
Good to have you here. So show me the way out. You know, the song was from before the pandemic, but it kind of still valid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You predicted it.
It's amazing how music can just apply to so many situations, whether it's a breakup or having to stay home all the time. Who knows?
Who knows? So glad you're with us live from Eugene, Oregon, correct?
I am, yes. It is noon here. I know it's a little later in the day there for you guys.
Yeah, we are already, it's dark, for you it's noon and the sun is still shining. So how's the weather? It's no snow, you told us, right?
No snow. We had snow in December for one of the only times in my memory here. But other than that, it's been really pretty mild, which, we've had all those fires and such on the West Coast the last few years. Right, so we're really hoping for a little more snow. It'd be great. But so far it's just lovely.
Very cool. I just found out that Oregon is 8,400 kilometers here from our area away.
Oh.
You said
that's interesting.
It's a long walk.
It's a long walk.
I think it's interesting because I'm fascinated about how the technique brings us together all over the world. You can talk to anybody in the world with video. It's amazing.
It really is. It really is. It really is. And it's been such a lifesaver during the pandemic too. Just imagine it without the ability to do any of this. It's just
I found out about
totally different world
during the lockdown when I was bored at home and checked Facebook, and I think it was Facebook where you did some live how do you call it? Live shows,
live streams.
Live streams, that's the word.
Yeah.
And I thought it was you were kind of very entertaining, and a great singer obviously, and a great piano player, and I loved it during the lockdown. That's
it was a really nice way to be able to stay sane a little longer, and to just feel like everything that my life was normally about didn't come to a complete end, because as a musician, as a touring musician, everything, just that my normal year would consist of just kind of evaporated. So that was one of those things where it was like, I guess I should probably try this whole live stream thing. And I'd never done it before that. And
like
it was a learning curve. But
like a lot of artists. Everybody was kind of, okay, what can we do?
Right.
And let's stay connected, at least as possible with the fans and community. So that was kind of the. But but you made a lot of these streams also with Daniel, your guitar player.
Daniel and I did quite a few together, and we were also recording some things together for our duo project called Shadow Sway. But yeah, it was really it was really interesting to not, be able to get together with like a full band, or a lot of things just weren't really in reach for a long time.
Looking to your discography and stuff, and the bands that you're playing with, so this seems to be a long, musical relationship, because he's showing up in everything you do, right?
Yeah, for a number of years, for sure. Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting how consistent my sort of musical family has been over the years. Like, I have quite a few like long-term creative relationships that have featured so prominently. Like, of course, Daniel, but also my creative relationship with Matt Shredder, the pianist, who's been on everything except for my first album and my most recent album. He and I have been playing together for like 23 years, since I was a very, very young musician. And so, just like, and he's not the only one that I've been playing with for a lot of years, but I guess I really like to build musical families and
it is,
groups of friends.
We talked about, you're now in Oregon. So we had, several people recently from Oregon. Like, we had Jared Lawson, is from Portland, I think. Then two episodes ago, we talked about Chance Hayden, also from Portland.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people. And I just... the other day, I read that the famous guitar player from Mr. Big, Paul Gilbert, we had him in our Christmas episode. I read that he moved to Oregon. So is Oregon kind of the new cool place, where the musicians, get creative, or
I think it's a combination. I think Oregon breeds a lot of artistry in the people who live here. It's a very inspiring place to live for an artist, I think, because of its close proximity to so much, nature and so many other artists. But I also think that it draws people to it. Portland is, for a long time, and I don't live in Portland, but I know that a lot of artists do live in Portland. It's for a long time felt like sort of this somewhat hidden artist gravitational center that went kind of unrecognized for a lot of years, and now the secret's out. A lot of people know about it, and it's just it's great. Like, it's great to get that, for it to be able to get that sort of commonly known identity elsewhere. But yeah, it's interesting. There are a ton of musicians just everywhere you go. Visual artists too, musicians, visual artists, video artists. There's a ton of it happening here. I don't know. All I can say is that I love living here, and that the artists that I know who live here also love living here. So there's something to it.
But you're from Alaska, right?
I am. I grew up in Alaska. I left in my early teens, and I came to Oregon at that point.
Was that a family thing at that time? Your parents moved, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was a multifaceted reasoning for moving, for sure. We lived on an island in the southeast that was just kind of a paradise in terms of just natural beauty. It's called Sitka, the town that I lived in for most of those years. And it's also an island with 8,500 people on it. I got my start performing there, and I did, a number of things that were very formative experiences for me deciding to pursue the path of music seriously. And then once I moved to Oregon, I had a whole lot more things open up in terms of, opportunities for a young developing musician. So many musicians to work with, and just so many places I could play, and you could drive anywhere. So just like things just sort of exploded from there.
Are you a child of a musical family? Was there lots of music in the house while you were a kid? Or how did it
No,
happen that you started to play piano and started singing? I mean,
yeah.
singing is obviously, but you're a good piano player. Very good piano
Thank
player, as I
you.
saw. Yeah.
Oh, that's kind. I feel like I'm a somewhat limited piano player in that I don't play, everything, but I like to accompany myself for certain kinds of things for sure.
And you
But I
did.
appreciate that. I don't have like a lot of classical training or anything. But when I was growing up, my family is not in would not describe themselves as musical people. Although I have extended family that are certainly musical, cousins, etc. But my parents did not play music growing up. My dad plays the harmonica. That's about as close as we get. but they were always listening to music, particularly my mom. Has always been a huge fan of a wide variety of things, and so we always had quite a bit of music that was really inspiring to me at a young age, playing in the house all the time. So like a lot of jazz and blues, for example, and like a lot of roots music. She like classic country, folk, things like that. So I had a wide array of inspirations. And I just, for some reason, always sang. I don't know where it came from. It was there from day one. And they were always very supportive of me pursuing that passion and later on that profession. So I kind of lucked out.
But you decided, so the decision to that this will be your path, to be professional musician was very early, as I've understood, right?
It was very early. Yeah. I first started performing when I was 10 years old. And then by the time I moved to Oregon, I already had my sights sort of set on the idea that I wanted to do it as a professional at some point in my life. And then by the time I was 14, I was actually doing a lot of shows that were like paying gigs. I was getting booked for festivals and weddings and wineries, and I traveled all up and down the West Coast.
With 14.
14. Oh. I know. Now I look back and I'm like, oh, I was such a baby. How did I?
Yeah, and somebody must have driven you to the gig.
Oh yeah, my mom put in a lot of miles. My dad too, but yeah, sometimes it was quite the family affair. But yeah.
So it is,
And you were already into jazz at that time.
I was, yeah.
Because I assume that most of young girls, teenagers, like pop music or whatever is around at that time, and you like to sing jazz, classic jazz standards.
I did. I really did love that. I mean, of course, I was a teenager, so I loved a lot of different kinds of music too. I did, especially once I moved to Oregon and I was a bit closer to sort of the heart of pop culture. In Alaska, everything's a little behind, or less back in those days. Like we had one radio station, on
the island.
We didn't have a lot of exposure all the time happening at the same rate that I experienced when I moved into the mainland US. But I did like pop and I did sing it. But, listening to all of the kinds of music that I did when I was growing up in a slightly more isolated setting, I think really helped expand my palette and gave me a lot of years to sort of stew in this other sort of inspiration musically. And it also helped that one of my first musical experiences that was most formative to me at a young age was I attended this fine arts camp called the Sitka Fine Arts Camp 2 years in a row when I was 10 and 11 years old. That gave me the opportunity to take a jazz vocal class and to be able to perform with a live band for the first time in my life, a live jazz trio. And so with that being my first sort of foray into live performance in what felt like a real sense, it really made an impression for me. And I don't know, it kind of carried me forward toward the path of jazz. I mean, I did do a lot of different kinds of music, like I mentioned before, and I still do. And that I like to interweave a lot of things, but at my heart, I really most enjoy, I think, the sort of the things that I am able to express through jazz music.
Yeah. I think in your latest album, From the Wild Sky, you lost, you lost, but you went away a little bit from the jazz.
Yeah.
And did some poppy and spherical sounds things. I like it. It's very nice.
It's actually on
Thank you.
Before we talk about the current album or the latest album, where most of the songs are your songs, right? It's original songs, and on the earlier albums, it's kind of a mix of, you know, versions of classics, and I think there was one version of a classic that we wanted to play, if you don't mind, from your album from 2008. I'm sure everybody will know this song, A Wider Shade of Pale. I think it's a fantastic version that you made. So if you don't mind, let's listen to that for a second.
Sure.
Skip the light fandango, turn cartwheels across the floor. I was feeling kinda seasick, but the crowd called out for more, and the room was humming as the ceiling flew away. When we called out for another drink, but the waiter brought the tray, and so it was later, as the minute told his tale, that her face at first just ghostly turned a wider shade of pale.
Oh my goodness, that's
a
an
great
awesome version of. It's one of my favorite rock ballads.
Oh, thank you.
I must say.
Nice.
And what is your connection to Wider Shade of Pale? How do you come up with this?
Well, you know, this is one where I have to give my dad a little credit for his musical taste.
So.
Because my dad was the classic rock fan in our house. And so I would hear, you know, this song among a lot of different others always playing in his workshop when he was out there working on projects. He was always inventing things when I was a kid. He still does, but he was always at it then. And I just remember always really loving this song. And of course, not until many years later, when I understood more about classical music, did I understand that it was based in, you know, quite a bit. It was very steeped in classical tradition too. It's Bach. Yeah. So that just added another level for me. But I, you know, back when Matt Treader, the pianist I was talking about prior, back when we were in our early days of performing together, we played a lot of like kind of piano bar type situations and just tried out all kinds of songs, and in the jazz tradition as well as, you know, from other genres. And that song just sort of kind of, I don't know, we just started to sort of put a little jazz spin on it. And a couple years later decided to try it out for the album. And for the Automated Song album, the 2008 release you mentioned. And it just sort of took on a life of its own. It's been definitely one of the most consistently popular songs in my live shows the world over. Just everywhere I go, people know that song. And
really?
It's often one of their favorites that we play. So go figure.
And it sounds great. And I like your phrasing. And I mean... Do you have singers that influence you the most, like jazz singers or whatever? Would you say, I like that voice, I liked Sarah Vaughan, I like Billie Holiday, or all of them? Are there special influences?
When I was growing up, my biggest influences in jazz, especially, were generally people with like lower voices, because at that age my voice was really low for a kid, especially. I loved like Nat King Cole was one of my favorites. Peggy Lee, Julie London, Diana Krall was just becoming sort of a more known person when I was about 10 years oldish. So that was definitely somebody I gravitated towards at that age. And I'm trying to think here. Did I already mention Nat King Cole? I think I did.
Yeah, you did.
Ella Fitzgerald and Etta James were the two E's that were definitely huge for me. I also really liked like Annie Lennox and Sarah McLachlan, Joni Mitchell. There's just, we are a collection of inspirations at all times with artistry. It's always growing, changing. It's sometimes hard to tell where the lines are between, so-and-so inspired this versus this is just a collection of things that were born of all of these things. So I don't know. But those are some of the people for sure that influenced me.
And how did you produce your first album? I think you were in your early 20s when that happened.
Yeah.
And you probably got a major deal and you went into a big studio in Los Angeles.
Oh, you're funny.
We have serious.
So here's how it went in a nutshell. I don't know if that translates, that phrase, in a nutshell, but in short, I had a home studio set up, still do. And everything from the Automated Song was recorded in essentially what was a home studio and like an extra bedroom. And it was Matt Treader and I co-produced it, and it actually was like a self-released thing where, we sold it at shows and things like that for about a year and a half before it sort of made its way somehow, some way, probably because of a couple of awards that it won. It kind of made its way into more consciousness elsewhere. I started to have a lot of people purchasing the album in Japan. Imports of the album. And so that's how I ended up forging a relationship with JVC Kenwood. At that point, it was JVC Victor, a Japanese label. And we signed a distribution deal. And that was really life-changing because, I still self-release things. I still own them. But it really expanded the ability for my music to reach a lot more places. And shortly after that, a year or so later, I started to get interest from labels elsewhere and ended up signing on with a distribution deal with Just in Time Records in Canada for the rest of the world. So it's been really great to be able to sort of keep my independent artist spirit, but to also have these relationships with these companies that have a lot more reach than I do. And to be able to like get my music into more people's ears. It's been really quite a lovely journey.
So you guys did a pretty good job in your home recording studio. And you went
everything until From the Wild Sky, my most recent album, was all recorded with my own equipment.
Yeah, I saw that. There's this nice clip that you made, kind of a making of the album before, Butterfly Blue.
Oh,
yeah, you made
right.
a nice clip, you know, where you explained, you know, how you did everything, and for that one, you produced, you mixed, you know, you did everything. You know, it was really like you said. But coming back to Japan, what is your perception? Because that's a story we hear, you know, from different musicians, different styles, that, you know, for some reason, you know, they start to go off, you know, in Japan. You know, why is that? You know, why is Japan? What is different with the people in Japan that they have this openness, or they perceive, you know, music in another way, that for many artists this is something, a place to start, and then the rest of the world will come. What is your perception? Why is that?
If I knew the answer to that, I would be able to be a very wealthy person. I could just sell that advice.
But did you go on tour in Japan?
I do. I've toured many times in Japan. And really, I think, I mean, I don't really know the answer to your question, Georg, but the thing that I encounter the most in terms of talking with my music fans when I'm in Japan is how intricately people listen to music who come to my shows, like people who know my songs as well as I do. And there's just I'm not sure, you know, if it's like a general cultural thing, or just I have awesome fans who are very thoughtful people. But I feel like there's like emphasis on really like savoring something in a way that maybe in some other places is not as common. So, you know, like there's a lot of people anywhere that you go who music is very peripheral. It's something that they listen to while they're jogging or they're working, but like how often do you meet somebody who, like these days especially, who's just like, I sit and I listen through my good speakers and I just absorb it. You know, it's just not something that modern life oftentimes brings to a lot of people's lives these days. But I feel like in Japan, there's still quite a bit of that sort of intentional listening really alive and well. And there's definitely people all over the place that had that same sort of experience with music. I mean, a lot of my music ends up on like audiophile collections. I see things on YouTube, like randomly, of people's speaker systems setups, like playing my music. And it's sort of like a whole community of people who really want that experience of just like getting that music, like kind of in a pure state. And the fact that my music is used in those situations is like, whoo, that's really awesome for me as a musician and as a producer, honestly. But yeah, I don't really know the answer.
No problem. It was a good answer. But we talked about that in the pre-talk, that you didn't have been to Germany, right? You have been in so many places, but it's still, you know, we need to.
I've not been to Germany.
It need to happen. But you have been. I found a nice clip which is from a live concert in London. I think you had some nice clips. And that's kind of, you know, showing, I think we said it before, that you started with these albums more focused on you know, jazz classics, cover versions, your versions, and then, you know, coming a bit more to the more pop soul style. You know, it was kind of a evolution. That's at least how, you know, what I can see from this. And I want to play one of the clips, which is also kind of this soul jazz style.
Great.
Let's check that.
I was just your sweet kiss and your warm embrace, when the reflection in a glass that I held to my lips now, baby, reveal the tears that were on my face. Oh, and baby, oh, you know that I'd rather go blind than to see you walk away from me. No, and well, you know that I'd rather go blind than to see you walk away from me. No.
This would be very successful here in Germany.
That would, yeah, well, for sure. Yeah.
I would love to do it there. Just haven't yet.
that's some years ago, right? It's 3 years ago, something like that.
Yeah. When was that? My goodness. 2018, I guess. Mm. Yeah, I think it was in 2018 or... Yeah. Anyway, the years at this point run together because of the last 2 years. My whole sense of time is just totally
like
warped.
Everybody. Yeah, it's unbelievable that we have already 2 years in this situation. Nobody would have thought that. So, but before the pandemic, you released your last album, and what I saw, it's I think you said it, that there's more people on this album. It's kind of not the self-produced and mixing way you did the others. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was my first time bringing in like an outside producer, like aside from myself and somebody else. Although we definitely made some decisions together, but Troy Miller definitely was like the producer of the album. And this was so different of an experience in all kinds of ways. One, it was a return to doing an all original album, which is how I actually started making albums back in 2006 with my debut, Full Circle. That was also all original. But it was the kind of project where I just sort of felt like I was stepping into an unknown abyss that anything could happen. It was exciting and it was kind of scary because having losing a little bit of that sort of sense of control over the whole process was a big step for me as somebody who'd made so many albums, on my own, or, as the person at the helm alongside, Matt Treader, or whoever co-produced with me, but still, I also, it was like a real, big difference in financial sort of situation. I ended up doing a Kickstarter campaign for the first time so that I could be able to create the album in this format, because I ended up flying to London and then to New York to record the album, and was in other people's studios for the first time in forever, and bringing in all of these amazing musicians who joined me on this album. Some of them flew in. It was just one of these experiences that felt like, wow, this is so removed from anything I've done previously, and I'm really happy with how it all turned out. It was definitely kind of beyond my wildest imaginings.
For the musicians, did you had a wish list, for the people, the musicians, friends that you wanted to have on that album? Did you had kind of, okay, now it's a time to get these guys or, on it, or what was the selection process?
It was a lot of it was sort of something that Troy Miller, the producer, and I talked about, and he he had so many contacts that I had never performed with before, most of whom were local in these local areas. And it was sort of one of those things where it was just like, well, he has a particular thing that he has in his mind on what he hears on this song or these songs, that he knows exactly who is going to be the person for that. And so it was sort of this exercise in trust, because it was like completely outside of my usual like musical circle, my usual musical family. And so it was sort of all a part of that idea of sort of this trust fall. And I'm so glad I did, because I made some incredibly wonderful new friends and contacts with these musicians that I probably never would have otherwise met. Who, some of whom actually, you saw Femi Tomowo, the guitar player who played on my album, From the Wild Sky, on that clip of I'd Rather Go Blind that you played here a little bit ago, because he actually lives in London, and travels to New York to play quite a bit. So, but he, like, I wouldn't have ever probably met him otherwise. And he's amazing. And I love him as a person. He's such a cool guy too.
I think that's what you can see in the clip that we have seen. I think the full band was amazed by your voice and singing. I think that's the beauty of the clip. I think you can see it in the band. So, but let's listen to something from the new album before we talk a bit more about it. What about the first song, Roots?
Go for it. Love it. Thank you.
Be careful where you plant your feet. You grow roots you don't even see. One day you're gonna wake up and find you've settled down. Be careful where you sleep and dream. It's gonna frame all that you see. One day you're gonna wake up and find you're stuck in this town. When you finally open up your eyes, will you love what you found? Will you love the ground you stand on? Will you love what you found? When you wake up laying in that bed you made, growing roots that you don't see. Be careful of you're on the edge of traveling through life half dead. One day you're gonna ask how you ever got here.
A hit.
Well, oh, thanks for playing that song. It's one of my favorites from that album.
Because of what?
It's just so different from anything I've ever written before. From anything I ever attempted to record before. It started out, actually, it's the only co-written song on the album. The rest of them are all just ones that I wrote. But this song, it actually started out as a poem by a friend of mine named Eric Allen, and I sort of adapted it and added to it, and it sort of became this amalgamation of both of our visions for what this song what the story of the song was. And I kind of did it as I don't know, I had no idea if it was going to work. I just started to kind of workshop it and like record everything a cappella for this demo, because I didn't have any idea of what other instruments would play into it. And so it was just this stacked vocal demo that ended up pretty much being true to form in the final version. Like, I did all the exact same parts. I just did them on a better microphone. and we added some drums and some like other accent instruments and like the organ and all that. But it was just sort of like, wow, I never really thought that my sort of like weird conceptualization in the studio was going to bear this kind of fruit. It was really pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds great. But do you have the possibility to perform this album live?
That's a great question. I do perform quite a number of songs from it in generally not in the same way that I played them on the album because it requires such a large band.
Of course. Yeah.
But there are songs that I can do solo from the album. Like I play Painter's song quite a bit. I've played, of course, Noah, which is mostly on the piano anyway. I've done like How to Dismantle a Life with a piano or with a guitar by itself. With Roots, that's a little tricky because you have to have drums most of the time. Although I have done it with just an acoustic guitar and one other vocalist, so it's possible, but it's hard. But it's really nice to be able to do it in a more fleshed out way. I just don't have that opportunity to do that in most of the shows because of I have to usually work with smaller groups of people on stage. So
yeah, and it's cool, and people love it. I think. Most of the audience doesn't expect to hear it exactly as it is on the CD. They want to see you and hear you.
Yeah,
right. I'm not.
It's coming back
to do some shows in USA. Is there touring life, club life already?
Yes. I mean, up until this point, it's felt like about 50% things that have been scheduled and postponed or canceled, and then 50% things that have gone on as planned. But I feel like that ratio is becoming a little bit better toward the idea of actually doing the shows as planned, and just sort of continuing with the thought that will continue to be the case. Probably. We'll see what happens with the pandemic. But I do have quite a few shows on my calendar at the moment, actually. I'm doing some concerts for Valentine's Day in Eugene, Oregon. At the Jazz Station, this great club in Eugene. And then I have some shows as Shadow Sway, the duo that I perform with Daniel Gallo, the guitarist, in Eugene at the end of February, and then in Portland in March, and then a few other things kind of here and there on the West Coast until May, when I'm actually doing like a sort of a mini tour in the Southeast. And I post dates, of course, on my website, and I'm about to announce a lot of those dates. But I'm doing some things like down in that area, and then I'm going up to Seattle at the end of May, and I'm going to be at the Victoria Jazz Festival in Canada this summer. We'll see what else kind of blossoms from that. It's so much has been up in the air until very recently in terms of what festivals are going to look like and if they're going to happen as planned.
But at least it starts that everybody is planning and trying to do what's possible. So it's kind of coming back. At least it's a good sign. That we will have to live with it for a while. But I think it's a good sign that it's coming back. It will take some time. But, everybody is willing.
Yes, for sure.
Willing and hungry.
Yeah.
I want to see some live music,
Yeah, exactly. I think we're all feeling a little stir crazy about it. But one of the things I most miss that I don't know when it's going to come back is, the ability to really do a lot of international touring, just because things have really changed a lot. But hopefully 2022 we'll see quite a bit of shift. So,
and you speak a lot of languages, right? You also on your albums you have French songs, you have Spanish, if I'm not mistaken. So how many languages do you speak?
Speak or sing in, because those are two very different things. I think I counted recently that I've sung songs in 9 different languages.
Oh, really?
But as far as speaking, I know some conversational fluency is so different, as you know.
Yeah.
I used to be much more fluent in Spanish than I am these days, just because I practiced a lot more with people who actually spoke Spanish. But I still get that back relatively quickly. But I'm relearning Italian, so I'm really trying to brush up on my Italian. I know some French, but I'm not really very conversational in it. You know, I've had a try at Portuguese. I know phrases in Japanese, Korean. You know, it's just
But is this something that is this something that have been always easy for you?
No.
You know, to adopt, you know, languages and stuff. Was this something, you know, you easily adopted, or because for me, you know, I'm happy I can speak, you know, German and a bit of English, you know.
I think you can speak more than a bit of English. I can attest to that.
Okay, good.
That's Your English is very good. You've made it. No, I did not grow up speaking multiple languages. I first started studying, you know, Spanish as my foreign language in school when I was in high school. So it was pretty far into my teen years. But I instantly started to really enjoy the process of, you know, learning and trying to speak in other languages. And I started applying that to my music, and just like pretty early on in my late teens or early 20s. And I just found it to be a whether or not, you know, I've definitely gotten better at it over the years in terms of really listening and trying to get pronunciations accurate. But even before that, just for the pure enjoyment of it, I think it's so nice as a vocalist to be able to feel a little bit more like an instrumentalist with your voice. And I feel like singing in your non-primary language kind of accesses that a little bit more easily, because it's a little bit less about all of the lyrical content, which I'm a very lyrics oriented person. I always want to just pour sort of all this meaning, all this interpretation of this lyric into my singing, and being able to sort of have that 1 degree of separation from the lyric, in that I know what it's saying, but it's not actively what I'm thinking of when I'm singing it. It's a little bit more sort of, playing notes and working with sounds and shapes and colors a little bit more than it is about wanting to be totally articulate about exactly what I'm saying lyrically. If that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. You know, we as you know, we are both you know, kinds of instrumentalists. So so I think, you know, we are focusing most likely on, yeah, let's maybe we are waiting for the solo, or we are you know, our challenge is to have a great tone or something like. So I think because I can't sing at all, you know, that you know, as a singer it's interesting, you know, what is the focus or the challenge, you know, what is the area you want to explore, you know, like you described. I think it was great, you know. But when you start with your, you know, songs and writing songs, what is first, as you said, you know, the lyrics part of it, or you start with the song, you know, and the melody
chords.
Yeah, it's really, for me, the longer that I've been doing this, and I've been writing songs since I was 13, so a few years. The longer I've been doing it, the more integrated all of the aspects of the song are for me right at the beginning. So oftentimes it'll be both melody and maybe a snippet, like a core of the lyrics. Sometimes the whole lyric matches the melody right away for me. But as soon as I started having sort of this idea of a melody and maybe even a particular rhythm, and sometimes like bits and pieces of lyrics, I'll try to find my way to an instrument, usually piano, sometimes my ukulele, and fish out what I'm hearing underneath it chordally. But it used to be, when I was first starting, it was easiest for me to come up with a lyric first and everything else came after that. So I came from this access point of the words, but now I feel like I'm much more about the melody first, and the words sort of flow from the melodic inspiration, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I don't have a particular process that I cling to. It's just however it comes to me, and usually it's melody first.
Yeah, I think when you have a great line, a text line in your head, then you already try to find, does it have an original melody? How does it sound? And you experiment, and so I think that's the way.
And then starts the layering.
Who writes the text?
Yeah.
I don't know. Bob Dylan probably, or Elton John got his lyrics from Bernie Taupin all the time, waiting for the letter to come and then checking it through, and then he did the music.
As you see,
different approaches.
Yes, that is a great example. And like, I don't know if I would be very successful writing like that, because I've never done that exact kind of thing. But for them, obviously, it was some of the best songs I've ever heard. And so for them, that particular method worked brilliantly. So no one can judge someone else's artistic process, I guess, is what the message of that is.
For me, it's interesting to hear where the inspiration comes from. Do you look around in your daily life? Do you see situations? Do you read a good book, a movie? It's probably all of this. You said a poem from your friend was an inspiration. So, I mean, kind of.
Yeah, I have several things that have been inspired by, movies or stories, at least at first. Like one of the stories that I often tell when I'm on stage with a particular original song of mine that I wrote with Larry Wayne Clark, a friend who I wrote quite a few of the songs that ended up on my jazzy albums. When we were writing the song Danger in Loving You, I had just seen a movie about the American gangster John Dillinger from the 1920s. And the love story of that movie inspired what we started out with, at least with the song The Danger in Loving You. Like I was explaining to him the vibe sort of that I was feeling in this one lyric, and then we sort of just sprung off from there. And so you never know where it's going to hit you. Or sometimes it'll be like watching out my window. Like I was looking out my window and watching these birds, and this whole like story came to life for me before I wrote the song Yellow Bird. And I don't know.
Herbie Hancock once told the story about Watermelon Man. When he was sitting in his apartment somewhere, and he had a window open, and the Watermelon Man came, and the ladies were screaming, "Hey, Watermelon Man!" Watermelon Man.
Yes.
Oh, there it is.
Yes, absolutely.
So
it's very
that's
true.
the art, I think, to catch up the ideas and then to make something out of it.
So
yes.
On the album, the song Wild Birds is something that came out of looking out of the window, right?
Oh, well, actually, no. Yellow Bird, yes.
Okay,
but Wild Birds was an altogether different kind of creature. That one was actually a song about grief. And it was one of those that it took me a little while to write it, because I didn't know what I wanted to say for all of the verses, because there were these isolated memories. It's like a bit of a walk through sort of the memories of loss. And then the whole idea of the wild birds was sort of this thing to return to, of this idea that we're all temporary wild creatures.
Okay.
And it was sort of a comforting thought, it was more of this idea of, oh, you're not nearly as important as you think you are, and that's good. Like we all are elementally, we are just here for a little while and we're gone, and that's how it's supposed to be.
I think if I'm not mistaken, hopefully it's also one of these songs I write, like the vocal layering that you did. So let's listen a minute to this song, Wild Bird, from your last record.
In a world before maps, holding breadcrumbs of courage, we ran into the day, trying to catch wild birds with our tiny bare hands and an open door cage. Like many adventurers, I soon discovered that fate wasn't always a friend. Under swaying trees, gravity conjured the scar on my knee, and a lesson remembered that the wild birds belong to no one, and the child nature will humble us all in the end. We sat on that stone by the ocean for years without fear, without thinking at all.
I think it's a beautiful song.
Thank you.
I really like the vocal arrangements when you start this layering and choir thing. I don't know how many tracks you recorded. But
Quite a few. The
is-
whole album, actually.
Is this something for you as a singer? Is something you really want to evolve and explore? Because in this other project that you are doing, HALIE and the Moon, it's also about this layering and quiet and sound, vocal sound kind of universe.
Yeah, I think
is this something that you really try to explore and to
Yes. In a word, yes. I really, really enjoy that aspect of making music, of stacking vocals, doing and even a single harmony. I love singing harmonies. I love kind of exploring the textural offerings that just using voices as musical layers can offer. And in my From the Wild Sky album, I did quite a bit of that, both in the demos that I made before recording the official versions, as well as like in the studio. I think that there was a particular track, I don't know if it was Roots or Well-Loved Woman, where there were like 30 vocal tracks, something like that, all happening at the same time. Woo! But on Wild Birds, one thing that was really cool was I did all these vocal layers of harmonies in the bridge and in the chorus of the song. But then the amazing Becca Stevens, vocalist and musician, she was a guest on that song as well, and so then she came in and added like her own sort of beautiful textural stuff. So that it was just such a wonderful addition.
Was that a connection to from the producer, or did you do something with her before? Did you know her, or how did that happen?
No, we had never played together on a project before. But actually, the reason that I really came to know the production work of Troy Miller was because of Becca Stevens' album that he had produced. And it was just his production work on that album really blew my mind. And so she had, we had some acquaintances in common, but we had never actually worked together before. So that was pretty lovely bonus.
Yeah. Besides the production elements, when I listened to Wild Birds just a couple of minutes ago, I got kind of carried away. I wasn't thinking about vocal layers so much, but I caught myself thinking about whatever, It was was this kind of your artistic goal when we listened to the first song earlier in the show? This atmosphere that you created, it's kind of dreamy, it invites the audience or the listener to,
Yeah.
To have his own thoughts and to relax. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that with the songs on that album, a lot of the intention was to create not just like a song with a story through the lyrics, but an experience of like a kind of a little world in and of itself, like it has topography, it has depth. It's sort of like one of those. I wanted to feel immersive. So you saying that tells me that was the effect for you, and that I love that. I love simplicity in music as well. Of course, I make a lot of music that has quite a bit of simplicity, but for me, I didn't want it to feel like cluttered. I didn't want it to feel like there was just a lot of stuff going on that you had to pay attention to. I wanted it to just feel textural, to feel like the experience of writing these songs is so immersive. And like for me, the entire time that I'm writing songs, I have like visuals in my mind the whole time, like I'm watching sort of a movie unfold. And I think creating that sort of idea of these layers, inviting you into the song, helps sort of share that experience in a way.
Yeah, I love it. And I can recommend to everybody out there, go and listen to HALIE Loren's music. There are several possibilities to get the music. I think you can order it. You can go to Bandcamp and
yes,
even to Spotify, but better go to Bandcamp.
We will not talk about Spotify. We agreed on that.
No. And if you want even more from HALIE, you can become a Patreon and join her at Patreon, and you get several additional content. You can get the downloads a little cheaper. You get information when she's on tour, when gigs are in the calendar, and what else can we get?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of everything that I post on there for the most part is exclusive to Patreon members. And some of that's just, like behind the scenes pictures, or I do quite a bit of, posting like blog style postings, talking about experiences in more depth, getting a little bit more personal than I kind of do on this general social media forums. There's been, exclusive videos that I've released only to Patreon members, song previews,
live streams,
downloads, live stream concerts. I've done, those have been some of my favorites. I've done like all these live stream question and answer sessions where people can ask me whatever they want to ask about whatever subject. And I have to, by law, answer them truthfully.
But I think what's really great, as you said earlier, the minimalistic, kind of simplicity style of, also performing. That's, when you did your live streams, just with guitar or just piano and your voice, that's really great, because it's as you said, so it's very not simple, but it's minimalistic, but it's still, transmit this great music, great song, great voice, and I think you did something for this. You mentioned the jazz club or organization in your town, the jazz. What was this called? The
Jazz Station.
The Jazz Station. So you did something for them in this style, and I will just look to this, for 30 seconds, because it ends up with a super complicated instrument that you need to tell us about that one. So let's see that.
Okay.
I'm rich as Rockefeller, gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street.
My goodness.
So you see that you only need guitar and great voice, nothing else. That's a perfect example.
I love it.
But what about
the kazoo?
The kazoo. So what, you know, is you perfectly played on it. So how did that happen?
So many years of training, so much training. I just spent hours in the practice room.
I can imagine.
Berkeley School of Music, at least 4 years intensive training.
You know, I think it's better if there's 6 years. I think it's just a little bit.
Yeah, if you want to become as good as you are. It's perfect for this song.
It's perfect.
It was really fun. Well, it was kind of one of those questions of what can you do when there's 2 people in a room with this song, and it was really fun to be able to do that. That was like many venues during the last 2 years. The jazz station had to close its doors completely for about 18 months, and
that's hard.
It's a small club, and it's like a volunteer run, like it's run by a lot of like donations and things like that. So it was pretty, you know, that was a fun video to do for celebrating the fact that they were going to be reopening soon. And, you know, it was really great to be able to do that. But we wanted to inject a little bit of party into the song. So I had to bring the kazoo.
It was great.
It's a rule. Will you perform live on your upcoming tour dates? In Jazz Station and in Eugene generally.
Yes.
Are we able to listen to a fantastic kazoo solo from HALIE?
You know, I don't know if I'll be featuring the kazoo at that show or not. We'll see. You know, I'll have to bring a separate bag just to bring it with me.
Two roadies, you know, to set it up.
A couple people to set it up properly. Of course, you know, you never know when I'm going to pull that thing out. But I will have all my tour dates on my website. So anybody who wants to take a chance of seeing me potentially play kazoo on stage can just look at my calendar and come to a show.
I would do that. But I said in the beginning, it's 8,
it's a little bit of a
400. So
No. Well, hopefully I'll be closer to your guys' area sometime in the foreseeable future. We shall see, but
so but at least there's a plan. At least there's a plan for live music, and you told us you have already something in mind for, you know, new songs, you know, new album, something for the future. So there will be more.
Things are brewing. And in the meantime, you know, I'm also working on a couple of new songs to release soon with my Shadow Sway duo with Daniel Gallo. So it's not jazz, but it's music that I love doing. So that will be happening in the meantime also. So hopefully people will enjoy that.
Great. So cool. As said, you know, we point people to your website, everything, the links to your album, Bandcamp, and all this stuff, you know, we put in our show notes. So we point the people to the right places. And it was a fantastic talk, you know, and great insights.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you guys having me on. And you know, life is going to be interesting for the next while, but knowing that people are out there to connect with this way and through the music, it just makes everything feel so much, I don't know, less scary. So really appreciate it.
Stay optimistic. There's the light at the end of the tunnel, and we get through it and lift off for
we look positive.
New concerts and focus and whatever, you know.
and new collaborations too. Oh, I forgot to mention something. I just realized I should mention this other thing that's happening, if it's okay.
Absolutely.
So have you ever been to the Bay Area, California, like San Francisco, that part of the world?
No, Los Angeles was the
not
first
yet
for me.
Okay,
I've been
one day you should. It's very worth a visit. But it's one of my favorite places in the world to play music, and I get to return to the Bay Area to play at this awesome venue called the Freight and Salvage in Berkeley, California, with a fantastic artist named Herman Lopez, who's from the Canary Islands, and I'm going to be joining him on stage. So I wanted to mention that happening on March 10th. Or I'm sorry.
Cool.
Yeah, March 10th. Yep.
Okay, great. So
my brain.
Even more great stuff is coming up. That's cool.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me mention that last minute plug, just in case.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just in case.
Great, and hopefully, and hopefully one time we see you here in Germany, or we come over and see you there. There will be a way.
I hope so. And I would love to come back to Europe to play shows again, and hopefully 2022 or 2023 at the latest will offer the opportunity.
There will be a time.
It's from EU to EU.
Yes. Depending on the language, I guess it is EU here too, isn't it?
Okay. Just.
I like it.
As you know by now, I'm a little crazy. But, thank you for your time and for this conversation.
Absolutely, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been great.
And all the
success and much fun for all the shows and the projects that you
Thank
have
you.
in the future.
Thank you so much. I will use all the good luck I can get.
And when the next album is coming, we talk again.
Okay, that sounds great. It's a deal. I'll meet you here.
Yeah, okay, deal.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
All right,
you guys go out there and
you too.
Get the music from HALIE.
Yeah.
And go to the shows.
Thank you. All the best.
All the best to you.
Too many times I mark the lines as immovable and cruel. Am I made of stone or monochrome? A self-important fool, but running with you while in the night along the river, your muddy fingers pick me into a